Imagine
Just shoves it out.
a Q-tip
Just shoves
that's
it out.
like this long.
Oh my
and,
goodness.
and they shove it from your nostril all the way to the back of your throat.
Huh?
And you have to gag.
What? Hey, what up, guys? Welcome back to 20 Minute Tea with Preppy Asher. And today we're joined with Clayton
Uncle C.
and Uncle Benjamin, my uncle.
Hi.
On 20 Minute Tea, we talk about big brain stuff under 20 minutes. Obviously not over 20 minutes. Under the topics of adulting, which is about from transitioning from teenhood to adult, and about designing, which is about passion and design. The way we do it at 20 Minute Tea is that we set up the context or like the playground, which is like a little topic that we're going to talk about. And then after that, we delve into that for like, I don't know, a huge section of time. And then after that, we just go all over the place in like casual conversation. And then after that, at the end, we try to have like an important synthesis or like conclusion to the whole thing and try to pull out certain lessons from there so that we can apply it back into our lives. And this week, we chat with Uncle Benjamin about... Uncle Benjamin, what do you think we talk about in this week?
Well, we've gone through, you know, governance. We've talked about the coronavirus. That's on the top of everybody's mind, and there's a little bit something. There was a little health scare, you know,
Right.
a little bit of health scare in there. I can
Right.
share with you. And yes, we talked about everything from New York to Singapore.
Right. Clayton, what do you think we talked about in this session?
Damn, I forgot the word.
It was so heavy. For me, I think my take was that this is a very, very interesting episode because we have not really broken down this whole thing of like coronavirus. We have just been like talking about it. It's a thing that's happened in the background for 20 Minute Teas. It's about like, for me, this whole like this current series is it's all about just me and my family and like fun things that are going on. But it's not like really addressing like the actual context of what's happening and why we're here in this place. And it's about because of the coronavirus, and I feel like this is a very interesting log of like what's happening in the background. And in this episode, I think we really talked about really interesting stuff in like the way the government, like Benjamin said, it's about the government, the way things are handled, the reason for why we are supposed to cooperate with them, and really understanding the kinds of perspective is understanding more of a greater context. We conclude with the thought of talking about not instead of me and changing to a more of a perspective to we as a community and why we should be looking out for each other as members of a community and not just for ourselves. It's a long episode and a lot for me to edit. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy it. So sit back, relax, and let's get into the episode. Today, Uncle Benjamin wants to be just called Benjamin. So yeah, Benjamin's my mom. Benjamin, how are we related?
I'm your uncle.
Yeah.
Yes, so I'm your mother's cousin.
Cousin.
Yes.
Okay. And
Easy.
apparently you guys are pretty close. You're pretty close.
Well, yeah, we grew up in the same. We didn't grow up in the same house, but we spent a lot of time with the same grandmother. So
Right.
yeah, since I remember the first time I came into contact with her I was probably 5 or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, so yeah, they call me the little monster, but you know,
And
not
how,
so
what's
little
the
now.
what's the age gap between you and like my mom?
How old is your mom again?
I don't know.
I think maybe
Who
5
knows?
years or so.
5 years-ish.
Yeah.
Right. And okay, so so as you guys know, I've been really wanting to really include more people, like interesting people from my family onto the 20 Minute Tea, and this week we're having my uncle on. The reason why I really want to bring him on is actually he's a really, really I would say prolific writer.
I'm okay.
And so today is also Clayton's also around here to join us with the little thing, with the co-hosting. Okay, so maybe Uncle Benjamin, how would you like describe a little bit more of your writing and like what do you normally like touch on, just to give the viewers a little bit more of like context?
Yeah. I tend to like to write things about current affairs.
Right.
I don't really like to write about politics, but sometimes you know it just pops up, and you know I think you can't escape from politics in anybody's life.
Right.
I like business and I like law, these and economics. So I think these are some of the topics that you know that interest me, and I tend to pick up on some of these.
my impression of Benjamin growing up was always that of like a very, very maverick, in the sense that like I never knew what you were actually doing. Because you were always like always like swapping stuff and like trying different things.
Yeah, so my progression through life was really I started in marketing and advertising.
Right.
So that's the core work I do, you know, and I did travel the world because you know, it's just for the fun of it. So that's probably why you couldn't keep up with what I was doing. And then I came back to Singapore, and then back in 2012 I got into almost, you can call it public service, not the government, but you know, but public enough, and then that's where everything continued from there.
I one thing I really respect about you, Uncle Benjamin, is that okay,
if I didn't say what you're comfortable with.
I'll just go with Uncle Benjamin.
Sure.
I can't like undo it. Okay, so Uncle Benjamin, you what I really respect about you is that like you have a very, very unique like attitude towards like taking on new stuff. And like one thing I was just telling my mom just now is that like one thing I know about you is that you are always very occupied and very, very like you always have like a little project going on and like a side little thing. And then I've actually worked with you for some of like the little projects that you have, like for the filming and stuff like that, and like your content production. And yeah, so yeah, and that's why I'm really always very impressed about like how you like really are so very active in like whatever you do. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, there's this book that's quite interesting that maybe your readers might want to pick up. It's called Yes Man. It was made into a movie, but the movie is a waste of time. Read the book. The book is really funny. So it's about this journalist who got bored one day and decided to say yes to every single person that comes along his way. So the rest you can go figure it out. Go read on your own.
Interesting.
I write a lot, so I publish on many platforms, including, you know, previously in the past on Yahoo. Right now I publish also a little bit on various those, you know, maybe some platforms you've heard about. Once on Singapore Business Review, and you know, well, I can't remember them all now, but yeah, so I write a lot.
Right. So a writer, and yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's armchair politics.
Which is something funny that you actually did say also in your own articles, like why do we have so many armchair like backseat drivers and kind of stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, as opinion writers, I think it's important. It's what we write. You know, it can affect what people think, but at the same time, I think let's not also think too highly of ourselves. A lot of the times what we write is just going to stay in our own echo chamber. So first and foremost, I take it as a hobby. I don't, you know, I don't think I'm going to convince anyone. But if it does, lovely. If it doesn't, it doesn't mean anything more to me also.
I hear that Uncle Benjamin, you are a little bit sick at the moment.
Yeah. So a small scare, you know. So I also work with the public. So I come into contact with a lot of people, and then, you know, suddenly a fever came up, and then a flu came up, a dry cough came up, and then I thought, these symptoms sound very familiar. Yeah, so I went to do the swab test.
Like they shoved it out.
I did the swab test. It didn't hurt, but let's just say that I don't want to do it again. It's you know, you very quick. But you've got, imagine
just shoves it out.
A Q-tip that's like this long.
Oh my goodness.
And they shove it from your nostril all the way to the back of your throat.
Huh?
And you have to gag.
What?
Yeah.
Oh dear.
And you have to gag. Otherwise, you know, you have to have that you have to trigger the mechanism that causes the mucus to come out. Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah. So that's nostril, and then they also take, you know, so then the nurse said, we're also gonna take a swab sample from your mouth. So I thought, okay, no big deal. Come on, go for it. But then she reached all the way in, and you choke. Like,
oh dear!
No, stop. Yeah.
So I can already feel it, like just like tickling the back of my throat already.
Yeah.
Oh,
so an interesting experience. I don't want to do it again.
Right. And like they processed it already? Did they process it
The
already?
results were very quick. 24 hours.
And
it's
you are
undetected. Clear. I'm
Right,
good. It
thank
was
God for
just a normal viral infection.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, and one thing that you always do like tend or and you're like I said, you're like a writer and stuff like that, and like most of the stuff that I interact with the stuff that you make is always on Facebook. And as of late, due to the coronavirus thingy, you have been more like I would say like a commentator, or like somebody that's always writing about the things that are happening online, or like at least in the news, in terms of coronavirus. Like, what's your take on like the politics of the pandemic, which is like something that we could talk about today? Yeah.
Wow, that's actually a very, very broad.
Controversial. Isn't it controversial?
No, it's controversial. It depends, but it's broad. So it can be everything
Right.
from A to Z. There could be, that could be how it's being handled. There could
Right.
be, we have elections coming, so there's that point of view, and then there's other countries, and then there's medicine, there's science, there's administration. So I don't know what
so many
would be
perspectives.
curious to you.
I don't know. I mean, whatever. What do you feel like it's on your mind right now, and like what do you think people like really should know about this whole situation? Because there are really so many opinions, as we all know, about like the news and stuff like that, and because of social media, it's so accessible and it's so easy for people to always just like spout out their own opinions. And even this itself also is like another, as you said, echo chamber for people to just share whatever they think. So what is important as like content consumers? Because a lot of content is already being produced, right? But then there's also like for me, I see it as like a filter. Everybody has their own filter, and then there's always certain variations of the news, and then it just becomes more of an off-read until it becomes like fake news in the end. What's your take on that? How should people...
I think what's important in this is in fact, not just the coronavirus, but actually in every issue in current affairs, I think there's balance. There's a balance of thought. So right now, some of the things that people are talking about, in Singapore is, stay safe, stay at home.
Right.
Our numbers are so large, it's 25,000. I'm losing count. I think it's 25,000 today.
Right.
Oh, are we mismanaging it? What about herd immunity? People are talking about herd immunity.
Like in Sweden, if I'm not wrong.
Sweden, yeah, it's the Swedish project. I think it was reported to have failed a little bit. America and Europe also, they may not intend it, but the effects are about the same.
Telling.
So there's always popular stuff. So the popular stuff would tell you, things are very bad in Singapore, But I think we need to always look at various angles. Is it really bad? Actually, it depends on really what you mean by bad. If it's purely numbers that you're looking for, sure, it's a very high number. But is it bad? I think bad would be how many people are dying. So in Singapore, we've kept that number extremely low.
Right.
So I think we, with my friends, I think we talked about an interesting comparison today. So let's look at the death rate in the United Kingdom.
Right.
I can't remember the exact percentage, but if you apply that ratio in Singapore, that death rate would be something like, if I'm not wrong, is something like 23 old age homes. Dead. Or, 20, the size equivalent of 23 old age homes.
Okay.
Everyone in there dead.
Wow.
So, it would be equivalent of having maybe I can't remember the exact number, but I think it's something like 2,400 people in Singapore dead. Yeah.
Wow.
So if you have that ratio of how it's being managed in the United Kingdom, and you have that ratio over here, that is the impact. But what is our impact today? Our impact today is, I think it's 20 persons who are dead, and a large number of them are very elderly people.
pre-existing conditions and stuff like that.
pre-existing conditions. Not that it's anything to celebrate about, but
Right,
it's,
right.
it's just for comparison.
And a lot of the times, like people always just look at the numbers all the time, but actually, like each number also has a value. And I mean, obviously each number has a value, but each number has like a context. There's also like a lot
Yes,
of like
correct.
right.
That's a sorry to interrupt, but there's like actually an interesting point about context as well. I watched this some like commentators talk about it on a podcast as well, a different podcast. But he was speaking about how most of the deaths of like I don't know whether it's true or not, but the thing is they are speaking in very, very good like, and the person was coming from a medical field as well and is dealing with all this research.
Right.
But he mentioned that a lot of the deaths were like miscounted because it's all on elderly people, right? But then say if you're an elderly person who got run over and then you tested positive for coronavirus, you're blaming on coronavirus, so it's death plus one on coronavirus. So that actually the death toll actually takes count. I mean there's a lot of accidents out there. Not just from like people dying from like old age. Because when you die of old age, right, your body deteriorates as well. And say you have just like a small hint of coronavirus, and even if it's not affecting you in the largest sense, right? Even if you're just a small hint of it, they just count it as a coronavirus death. So a lot of information are mismatched out there, and it's very, very wild actually. The numbers are context, but I think the context of numbers aren't actually accurate because they just want to like they're so paranoid in the sense that if you have a drop of coronavirus on you, it will translate into coronavirus death, even though the death might not be correlated kind of thing. So that's kind of scary as well.
Yes, Clayton, yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, absolutely right. So the top country in terms of deaths today, if I'm not wrong, it's actually Belgium.
Right.
But the Belgians have made the threshold to report a coronavirus death so high, or rather, it's so sensitive that even there's a joke that I saw on the internet. Well, okay, but anyway, they made it so sensitive that if you even have anything to do with the coronavirus, anything to do with it, maybe you had someone in the
have
house,
a fever, or
and then you died of it, whatever your age,
or you just died.
Or okay, let's say you have the coronavirus and a car hit you. They will count that as a coronavirus death. Right.
It's kind of like in America also, like I think Clayton, you also were you referring to the Elon Musk interview?
Yeah. Wait, was it? No, was it? No, I don't think it was Elon Musk. It was someone else.
Right. Anyway, in America, like they incentivize if you report a death in the hospital to be of coronavirus, then after that you can claim some money, and that's why they also always register a lot of like more numbers, and in that sense where the policy is also racking up the numbers, where it's not a medical thing, but it's the way that the government also handles the situation, which is also resulting in higher numbers, and then the graphs just rocket a lot.
Yes, and that's the interesting thing about economics. All that is economics. Anything to do with numbers, you look behind it, and what is the number? What makes up the number? So in Belgium, they're very sensitive, and because they want to be open and truthful, and all these things. On the other hand, in Indonesia, they don't want to report any of this. So they set the bar for a coronavirus infection or death very, very high. Or very, very low, depending on which angle you look at it.
It's less sensitive, sensitive.
So the country reports very low deaths, but then if you look at the number of, it was reported, if you look at the number of funerals that they're having, that has increased sharply.
Right.
So, numbers are quite interesting. Yeah. So I think what the world needs right now is a standardized way of reporting these things.
And like somebody like what WHO is supposed to distribute this kind of like measures, or
they can enforce. You see, the World Health Organization is merely it is merely a central body to suggest and urge and study, but they cannot enforce. They cannot tell countries what to do. It's really up to countries to decide what they want to do for themselves.
Right. One thing that one thing that I'm actually have been like reflecting on is that the way that certain people, like especially when you look at the comment sections of dramatic posts, now news is just always, everything's just dramatic all the time, and all the headlines is just like the world's ending, blah blah blah, that kind of thing. Like you kind of get that sense, and the kind of response that you also see inside the comments is always very very extreme. It starts to like swing from left to right a lot all the time, and most of the time people. And if you look at if you look at any news, right, there's always a problem. It just depends on which angle you're coming from, whether you're coming from a political angle, economic, or maybe social, or and people always can find a problem in that way. Or how do you think people can, like, I don't know, view the news in a better way, or like react or respond to the news in a better way?
Yeah, so the best way to do that is to have you know, when you eat, there's a food pyramid, right?
Right.
The high fiber at the top, you know, carbohydrates and proteins, and then junk food at the least of it. So it's the same with the things you read. You know, you can read some tabloids and all that, but that's junk food. And then you consume a wide variety of media, and then you decide for yourself after that. Because at the end of the day, no media is unbiased. It's impossible. You have to, because of the nature of language and the nature of people. Even if you try to be as unbiased as possible, you end up, delivering some of your own opinions inside unwittingly.
Let's go to America. What's your take on the way America is doing it?
It's okay. So I won't claim to know anything about them. I'm no vested interest in them whatsoever, and I may not be the best person really. But as an outsider, as just an ordinary reader, you can see some conflict between their administration and the fourth estate. The media is the fourth estate, right? Yeah, you can see some conflict between them. It's interesting. It's interesting.
It's very wild.
And America is run in such a way that they're a very free country. So it's not as easy as a president telling everyone what to do. That I understand. Governors have a right to tell the president, no, thank you, I'm going to do it this way, and that I understand.
Right.
Yeah. But I think you can't help but wonder that if they could have done things in a more slick manner. Yeah.
Because the thing that I'm worried, or like I'm thinking about, is that like now the epicenter of this whole coronavirus is actually in America, if you can think about it. And they are the ones starting to open up again, and they will be the ones propagating the next second wave. And then after that, we'll just go through the whole cycle all over again, just because of another country and like this unstandardized kind of like global, because now we're living in a globalized world. So, and these kinds of things have to be coordinated to a certain sense. Well,
yes, actually, between countries right now, they have to coordinate who opens the borders to who. So if your country has not been sorted out, I think quite unlikely that other countries would open their borders to you. So that's something that countries like America, United Kingdom, in fact many countries have to deal with. And partly why that people are behaving in this way, it's not because of Americans or their politics or anything, but really this sort of lockdown is very unnatural. It's not human. There's going to be a fatigue if you carry this on for too long. Already on our own shores, you can see people are rebelling against our measures.
Right.
I don't think any country can sustain 2-3 months of this sort of lockdown. It's impossible.
Which is another social kind of thing.
Yeah, because even if people don't go nuts, they would also starve. You don't work, there's no money. What are you going to do? So unfortunately, I think for America, the unemployment rate is extraordinary. I think it's like 30% now. I think.
Wow.
Yeah. So they. I think unemployment claims. So I don't know whether it means unemployment. But they do have to, find a way to sustain. It's either the government foots the bill, or people have to get back to work.
That's the thing, because money is still moving around and it's just pooling at one place. You know what I mean? Yeah,
I feel it's like because Elon Musk actually mentioned in the podcast as well. The thing is, he said like people think that everything is going to be fine just because money is moving around, but that's not actually true, because even if money is moving around, it's just currency. Currency is just like, something, a placeholder. If you don't have the actual resource, who's going to eat? Who's going to drive the petrol? Like, where's you get your gas from? Where you get your electricity from? Everyone's going to work that day. So eventually everyone's going to have to, once we go out of a resource shortage, and then as you said, fatigue, right? Everyone has to go out and work. So how do we actually deal with this sort of, I would call it like second wave of when you open up your country to actually get out resources again, so we can go into normal quarantine. So that's the hardest part. This is mind-boggling. You want to tear your hair out of this kind of stuff.
Absolutely. So I heard an interview by New York's governor, very famous by now. His name is Cuomo, right?
Cuomo.
Yeah. So he did say that it's of course first and foremost is more important to save lives. You have no lives, you have no economy. I mean, that's basic. But at the same time, if you have no money, people starve. So you can't deny that fact either. And he says that it's possible for governments to do both. I mean, you don't have to choose between one or another. You can do both, but it needs to be very calibrated. You need a very smart government to do that, and that's what governments are there for.
And coordinated.
Yeah.
A lot of coordination.
Yeah, it's
How do you think
extremely
coordination
difficult.
will work out? How do you think coordination will work out? Because rationally, if you were to like say have an ideal world where everyone is cooperating, like world peace kind of thing, like every country will have their own systems and measures, and there'll be like one central sub board of governors where they say, oh, you guys will be locked down from X amount of periods, and the whole world will do it, and then everybody will coordinate together so that everything is sort of streamlined in the sense that I'm gonna open up, and then it's not like America, I'm gonna open up, and it's like, guys, let's not open up. America opens up. We're not here, like there's a discourse between sort of the way the trajectory you actually take about your sort of stance on this going on. So when you think unity is gonna, that's the real question.
Yeah. So a lot of people misunderstand governance. So they think that the best way, a lot of people, the simplistic way to think of it is that the best way to do things is that you got a dictator. One man dictates everyone, you do this, you do this, you do this. But that is actually a false hope. It's not so easy to get people to respond to you. It's actually impossible, even in places like North Korea, unless you shoot people and kill them if they don't listen to you. It's not gonna happen. So let me introduce your listeners to this this term called tripartism.
Okay.
This is actually very, very, very important. So you've got your society, you've got your government, you've got your business community, and you've got your workers, which is a citizen. These three parties have to work together as one ecosystem. And Singapore is a very, very good laboratory for this. So let's just, for one example, we wanted to introduce social distancing, right?
Right.
Did you realize that almost overnight you could see Scotch tape on the floor everywhere?
Right.
How do you think they did this? It was not a matter of Lee Hsien Loong going out and say that, oh, all of you must put tape on the floor.
Right.
It doesn't work that way. So so the government will go to the employers and tell the employers that, hey, or in this case, the Singapore Tourism Board, the NEA, the Ministry of Manpower will go down to the employers, and in this employment community and tell them, hey, could we do this, please? It's for the good of everyone. And then they say, okay, let's do that. And then they would tell the workers, okay, can you please mark the tapes on the floor? Can you keep everyone at the safe distance of 1 meter? And then poof, overnight everything is done.
Right.
So that is how you actually mobilize people to do things. It's not so much of let's put into law that you must have a tape on the floor and you must law doesn't do it. As a person trained in law, I can tell you law is a very horrible way of getting people to do things.
Right.
It's the worst way of getting people to do things.
If we were to do that, let's paint the other picture. If we were to go by the law kind of approach, how would that have turned out? Or what's a country that is actually using it that way?
Well, again, you can also look at to us for the same example. Then you get people challenging your law all day long. So now you tell people that you can't go out of your house except for essential service. Sounds very simple, right? It's law is very easy, right? Essential service. Then you get people challenging you. What do you mean by essential service? I need to cut my hair. That's essential service. I need to go banking.
Right.
Oh, my fingernails are very important to paint. That's an essential service. My dentist is important. My dog is important. My car is important. Everything is important. Then you've got people challenging you all day long. So law is horrible.
So in that sense, like Singapore has has a more collaborative kind of approach.
Tripartite approach.
Right. A tripartite approach where it's a more of mobilizing.
Correct. So it didn't take place yesterday or a month before. It's not possible for this kind of thing to happen overnight, not even over a week. Singapore has been maintaining this tripartite relationship ever since 1965. From day one when Singapore formed, all the business federations, all the trade unions, all the government officers have been working with each other, integrating, working with each other, for the good of everyone, not just for the good of just the workers or the businessmen or the government, but everyone.
Right. And would you say we also benefit from our smaller scale? And that's why we have been able to also realize a certain level of success in the management of this virus. Crisis.
I'm not sure what you mean by smaller scale, but it's
like the number of people lah.
Oh yes. Of course, our small size and our small nation and a small population,
adaptable.
It does help. So that's why I say we're a very nice laboratory.
Right.
Yeah.
And
if we were the size of Malaysia, it's probably another story altogether.
Right. And from what I've been reading about, like the way or like the stuff that you've been writing in your commentary, you tend to be more of a kind of like a defender of like the things that the government or like the way that the government is running things.
It's unfortunate that it comes out that way. It's unfortunate. I don't start with
intend
I don't start with the government.
Right, it's good.
Right first.
Totally.
I don't start with that. I always start with the logic, the economics.
Right.
Yeah. So whatever the matter is, you always start with that logic first. Yeah, because at the end of the day, government has to make decisions. And why do they make certain decisions? So you have to balance, the economics, the administration, the difficulty of managing literally millions of people.
Right.
Yeah. So when you consider all these things, then you come to the conclusion that actually
that was the best decision. But what they did was the best decision that they could have done, because they already have so many things to weigh already. And like for me, I always think to myself like, wow, I really am glad that I'm not in their position, because to have to take care of so many responsibilities and trying to coordinate such a approach towards this kind of global crisis.
Sometimes it's the best decision. Sometimes it's just the worst decision.
Right.
Every decision. Yeah. Sometimes you make decisions today that is helpful, but tomorrow it will become a poison. It's like medicine. It has to have a side effect.
What is one? I wanna like try to like bring a certain like positive conclusion to this this part of the chat. And what do you really admire about like the Singapore government? Like as a commentator, because you have been somebody who has been like really, really in close contact with these kind of ministers and all these policymakers, and like you're like understanding the whole tripartite movement or like strategy. What is something that you really admire besides tripartite strategy?
I think the one thing I admire, apart from, I think the tripartite approach is already quite
comprehensive.
Important. Yeah, quite comprehensive. But the other thing I like about the public service is that the amount of thought that they put into something is enormous. So whenever I read comments such as, oh, the government never think, hire so many scholars that never do a right decision. Like, these comments are, I think, not called for. If you look at the meetings they have, before they can come to a decision, you will not believe the amount of people and thought and scrutiny that they have gone through.
Could you describe to us like one of those sessions?
Okay, I'll just maybe not the sessions, but I'll explain to you in a very more
Simplified.
interesting way. You know,
Okay.
think about our expressways.
Okay.
Think about our expressways. You've got what, Ayer Rajah Expressway.
Right.
You've got East Coast Parkway. You've got KJ, the Bukit Timah Expressway. Okay, so Ayer Rajah Expressway is AYE, right?
Okay.
The acronym.
Yeah.
Okay, Ayer, AY, and then E.
Right.
East Coast Parkway is ECP, the acronym.
Okay.
So why is Ayer Rajah not ARE?
Because they don't want to mix it up with the other one.
Yeah, so why is Marina Coastal Expressway MCE? The first letter of each alphabet, but Ayer Rajah is different. It's AYE. So if you go on the internet and search, there's actually the civil service has published their reason for doing it this way.
Right.
You know, if it's a 2-syllable word, they will use the second syllable as the acronym header, AYE. If it's a single syllable word, East Coast and Parkway, they will use ECP.
Right.
Yeah. And what about Marina? Now Marina is 3 syllables.
Right.
So they that's too many, so they use the convention of Marina Coastal Expressway. And this naming convention is already standardized. Now,
Right.
why am I saying all this? They have paid attention to even this sort of rubbish, you know. even something that we don't even bother about, you know, that there's attention paid to this sort of detail.
Right.
So if you apply this same kind of thinking to how they manage, you know, buildings, finances, properties, you know, it's actually quite staggering.
Which is
Let's just say that the Prime Minister does not make a post without having first a report and a suggestion by his team.
Right.
Yeah, so there is an extreme amount of thinking going behind it.
Unlike for example Trump where he doesn't like actually he'll just like go through the meetings and then after that just like
So he's known for speaking off the cuff.
Right.
Stream of thought reporting.
Stream of consciousness, and then after that he'll just
Stream
like
of
he just wings whatever.
consciousness,
Yes. Which I really think is very, very, which is something that has been maintained as like a standard, a gold standard, as like since Lee Kuan Yew's time and all the way until now, where they have been really trying, or have maintained this kind of like long-term thinking, because they really value the assets of the country and their responsibility very well, I suppose. That's my take on
so
it.
if any of your listeners want to join the civil service, you have to remember the 3 things that will score them in an interview would be to talk about things, you know, such as thinking wide, you know, thinking deep and thinking broad. So you have to think wide, deep, and broad, you know, and demonstrate that. And chances are, you know, you could score well in your interview.
Really interesting. How Clayton, what's your take on like the current like topic so far? You've been a bit quiet.
I'm still really mind-boggled about tripartism. Like, how do you think it would expand out to the broader perspective of a global scale if we were to deal with this?
Not possible. Yeah, it's not possible. Singapore can do it because our history allows us to do it. Our history, you know, started with the political party also forming the trade unions, you know, and
like NTUC.
And we have a very good history to start with. Whereas and also, you know, our Asians, you know, our citizenry is not so uptight about things like human rights and you know and curtailing of freedom and all that. Not that we don't have freedom, but we're more collective. So we think more, you know, family and
not so individualistic.
Not so individualistic. Whereas if you have this in the West, no way it's going to work because everyone, you know, is more individualistic. It's natural for trade unions to fight with government, and that is the relationship. If you say to collaborate, they would thumb your, you know, their nose at you, and it's just not possible.
Let's go to like the biggest crisis for Singapore, which is the dorms, and like how they have been handling it. Because for me, my take is that like they have really done a really exceptional job, and like the way that the Prime Minister also like has been also bringing confidence to the people and to those men and women, or those men in the dorms also, right? He has also like really won a lot of their trust. And from what I've like seen in the news, or like the kinds of news that I've been seeing, not to say that I know all of the news, but the ones that I've been seeing is that there has been a lot of like gratefulness and gratitude that people have been from those men and women, men. But then after that, they also have like these Singaporean commentators those ones that see those the foreign workers in the trucks, and then after that there was this picture of the foreign workers in the trucks, and then after that they were like segregated by boards behind like the bars of the truck. And then after that he took a picture of it, and after he in his comment he said like wow, like the government like treats them like animals. And I'm like, no, but how else would we have transported them? And like there's so many things that it's just taken out of context. And there's also like there's a rise in like racism, and especially with these kinds of situations we have also seen a lot more of these kinds of a lot of underlying fractures in the society also tend to arise when in times of stress. So maybe Uncle Benjamin, what's your take on like the way the government has been handling the dorm situations? Because it's actually the one that's been generating the most numbers, right?
Yeah, correct. It is the one that has been generating the most numbers, and there's a reason why it got to that sort of numbers. Well, okay, firstly the reason is that they're testing everybody lah. So
right.
The more you test, the more you turn up. And
right.
Okay, I think let's start from the very beginning. I think this is not something that is just the government only.
Right.
If it was really up to the government, I think we may or may not have come to this sort of scenario. Right. But because my work also involves sometimes dealing with writing about foreign workers, migrant workers, and understanding what they do. I have visited foreign worker dorms, and I can tell you actually they're not bad.
Right.
So there's a lot of there are black sheep. There will surely be black sheep, and I do agree that these black sheep are not brought to task earlier. I've been to dorms that are actually really, really well managed. The most famous one that's on the newspaper right now, S11, is actually really. It's quite well run. Right. It's packed, no doubt. But it's not designed for extreme comfort. It's designed for. It's a military camp. You go there, you sleep, you cook, you do your work, and then you go back home to your country.
Right.
So it's not the Shangri-La. Right. And they're all in dorms. Then people are asking, hey, why put them in dorms and things like that.
But then where else?
Yeah. But let's be very honest about something here. Very honest with yourself, with your listeners. Let's be very honest and say that Singaporeans have some sort of racist streak in there. Yes. Go and look up the newspapers. You will see that when the government tried to build dorms in Serangoon back in 2010, the Serangoon residents raised a lot of very uncomfortable remarks, pushback, and actually demanded that the government do not build their dorms there.
Right.
So, okay, the government has to respond, so the dorms were built further and further away. And go and flip the newspapers. And if you don't believe me, try and ask for a rental, the price of a rental of a room or a house, and say that you're of any race other than someone from the West,
Right.
Any race. Yeah, chances are they probably won't rent it to you.
Right.
Yeah, so you will see advertisements on Property Guru, or you get agents texting you and say, only such nationalities allowed. Other nationalities, forget it, or they'll charge you more. So this is open. This is not even a secret. Let's admit that. And listen to the way that some of the older generations speak. Listen to the tone and how they talk about our migrant workers.
Right.
So let's acknowledge that exists. Right. So we acknowledge that exists. The government cannot deny it also. So if the government tries to deny it, the whole of Singapore is going to react at the government.
Right.
And then you get failure to implement rules. Yeah. But that said, so but I like the way that they're handling the situation now. It's very military, very.
The army has gotten involved.
Army has gotten involved, very military and very very gently. Also, there's more politics than you can think of that's involved in this, because you are dealing with the feelings and emotions of 300,000 foreign workers.
Right.
If you remember, in Little India, it just took a handful, 20, 50 foreign workers to create a riot. Can you imagine if 1,000 people get frightened, angry, or nervous? That could have been a disaster.
Right.
So they broke down the foreign worker numbers, split them into smaller and smaller living units, and overnight, and this is tripartism at work again. Overnight, they could call cruise ships, they could call hotels, they could call organizations to give up their space. Yeah, all this was done overnight, and it's amazing. This is again tripartism at work,
right?
And break down the crowd so that the workers don't spread the virus so easily. Yeah, so that was also pretty amazing. So, like the Prime Minister said, if there's bad news, they give it to you straight. There's no point hiding, especially in this day and age of social media. There's nothing to hide. But as we look ahead, there are some things for all Singaporeans to reflect on.
Right.
Surely if you want better food, better living conditions, you need more land, you need larger dorms, you need to pay for better food, better whatever, you pay for cleaners, price will have to go up.
Right.
Then people will say that, but my foreign worker levy is so high. Like, come on, a couple of $1 million, it's in a few $1 million in the context of a national budget of $55 billion is actually not very much. 5 million, how much the Circle Line cost to build? It cost something, if I'm not wrong, is 3 billion or 6 billion, if I'm not wrong.
Right.
Yeah, so it's $5 million probably can buy you like three or four fighter jets.
National crisis as well.
It's a national crisis, yes. Yeah, and I think the great power that Singapore has is in its savings. So listeners, save money. You will need it for the rainy day, and that's what we have right now. We've got we can pay for X-rays, we can pay for ventilators, we can pay for Singaporeans to go back to work. We can foot the bill for a lot of things just so that the country doesn't crumble.
Right.
Yeah, not many countries can say that.
How much has Singapore already spent already?
I think apart from the national budget, I think altogether there's another $40 billion taken out from the reserves.
The reserves.
Yeah,
I'm
not sure about the figure, but better you can Google that. Yeah.
Right, and I heard somewhere from a mom and that's not even half of the reserves that we even have. Like $40 billion is already being chunked
billion,
out.
Not million.
Billion.
Yeah, well, we don't know the size of our reserves, and there's a reason for that. Because our reserves are, they're not just money to shelter us from a rainy day. It's also money literally used for war. So, if we ever have to buy bullets and things like that, you don't want the enemy to know how much missiles you can spend on.
Right.
Yeah, you really don't want to know that. Or you also don't want, a foreign speculator to drive the value of the Singapore dollar down.
Right.
By, this is very financial related stuff.
Right. Interesting, and very interesting. How would you summarize today's conversation, Uncle Benjamin?
Yeah, it was good fun. It's I just did a Donald Trump I just rattled off what's at the top of my mind.
Whatever you knew.
Yeah, the figures, whatever figures I mentioned, please go and Google, because it's 10 p.m. and my mind is not so not so sharp.
I think one thing that I really enjoyed about this session was that so often it's so easy for us as youth and young people and just general laymen to always just criticize and there's a lot of negativity that's always going around on the internet, and I don't really like that a lot, and there's quite a lot of there has to always people tend to always just like see it and then just say it, and there's not a lot of like consideration and also thought behind and to also contextualize whatever is happening, and just like easily and so quickly criticize. It's just write 2 phrases on as a comment and then just send it, and then after that you just change people's mind about certain things. And it's so easy to just like rattle off on like whatever you're feeling as an emotion, and there's not a lot of logic also. There's I feel like there's personally that I feel like a lot of times a lot of the drama that happens is more emotional, and whereas for our government I really respect that they also are running it in a very, very systemic kind of approach lah. I don't know, I feel like I don't really have a place to say any of this because I don't really read as much and not really just in tune with the whole situation. But for me, one thing I always do respect is the way that the Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong has been like taking care of the whole thing, and his confidence in the people themselves, and the way that he's also projecting a certain front to the people to give them confidence to also pull through the CB period. In that sense, that's why I'm still enjoying myself at home, because like I know it's gonna turn out okay because no, but I'm loving it at home.
Yeah, I know. I like this work from home arrangement also, you know.
Right.
Spend more time with the family. I don't have to deal with traffic. You know. But yeah, it's easy to go about life, blaming and considering only your point of view.
Yes.
But it's I think there's more to life than that lah. I think it makes you a better conversationalist also if you have many perspectives.
Right.
And I when people ask me what they think about something, my reaction is always I don't know. Because the more you know, the less you know.
Right.
If it ever makes sense.
You actually don't really know as much.
You actually don't really know.
You don't even have a say in it.
Yeah, because in every issue there are just so many things to think about, and then when you think about all these things, you realize that thank goodness I'm not the government.
That's why.
Yeah.
That's the conclusion that I'm like I'll just think I'm not them.
Yeah. So, but it does make, but it's good to run through this process of considering,
Right.
and you look at the economic point of view, then you think about the larger numbers so it's fun.
And I guess from that point I just really am very thankful for good leaders and good men that are in a place of power and like just taking care of the people. Clayton, how would you conclude this session?
Shut up the whole way because I'm like taking in all the information. I'm also blessed to have this session because I'm so much more informed now. Like, honestly, it just confirms my bolsters sort of my rationale towards this whole situation. As I already said, people really think we are emotion. They don't rationalize a lot. So like, what I feel now is that like 80% of the internet is usually just emotions, and then the other 20% are the actual rationale that comes out of it. Even sort of news sites, they are very, very trusted as well. Some of the journalists out there has really said they are also biased as well. So like in this sort of confusing time where you don't know which information is which and which you actually should take in, it's like kind of confusing. But just knowing that we are in Singapore and the government is like super transparent, like 100% transparent, you just have faith in this. Like just let them take this course, and then whatever they progress with, and then good on you, just do with it, and then we're just lucky being here. Bless them, boys.
Benjamin, what's your final, like, how would you conclude?
Yeah, I in case it sounds like like we
propaganda.
Like propaganda, or
right? It does sound like propaganda.
That's the difficult thing about my writing. When you think logically, you end up sounding like that. But that's not the case. So there are situations that perhaps that things that they do I don't like, but I realize that it's something that I don't like, and it may not be my wife doesn't like, or my my grandmother doesn't like, or my next door neighbor doesn't like. So there's a wider community to think about,
Right.
So I can rattle off about what I don't like, and then I scold the government. Okay, it's just my point of view.
Right.
Yeah. So it's not just being pro government or whatever. It's really just being pro community.
Right.
But if they do have policies that are really so stupid that the entire community does not agree with it. And it has happened even recently. Maybe let's not go into those, but they have made decisions that is highly unpopular. Then okay, we voice it out. We voice it out, they hear you, and then they may change their mind. And they have changed their mind.
Right.
But of course, they won't tell you that they changed their mind. They just say
Right.
they made a U-turn lah.
They just reshaped it.
Yeah, they reshaped. But at least they make the U-turn.
Right.
And if it really is so bad, then we've got a democratic process, then you vote them out. It's very easy.
Very easy. I think my concluding thought would be like what Cuomo also said, that it's changing from the me to we.
Yes.
That's the biggest lesson that I've learned from this whole coronavirus, is that it's more about like you said, the government is not only thinking about you. If it doesn't make you happy, then after that, everybody has to change around that person. It's about for the greater community, and if it impacts the greater community positively, then they will make the decision, even if it it walks over you as a person and you don't like it personally. And a lot of the times when we only think about ourselves all the time, then then cause a ruckus that's unnecessary and also does harm to also against the government, and not just government but the community. It's not about the government, but it's about the community, and it's about the other people on the side of the road and like your neighbors and stuff like that. And from, I guess, this fundamental change from me to we, that will be the thing, or the kind of mindset that we have to appreciate as we also go into this next phase of trying to open up again, and this whole new dynamic again of how everything's gonna change all over again. That's really, really scary. The next section of this year, trying to open up again, and all the instability and all the new policies and all the new I'm not looking forward to that.
We live in very interesting times, man.
But in this whole thing, we all know that we are going through this together, and everybody, if they just suffer a bit and spread the stress among everybody else, and everybody do their part, I feel like that's how we will all get through this together. So yeah. All right, great. Cool.
Keep a diary, when next time when they're children, grandchildren.
Right.
We have a story to tell now. We have a story to tell. We're lucky.
Right. Okay. Let me do the outro. Okay. So thank you guys so much for listening to 20 Minute Tea. Do share your thoughts in the comments. If you like what Uncle Benjamin said, or whatever you thought about, just share with me, and then after that I can forward it to him also. Share, and subscribe to Preppy Asher on Instagram, Spotify, and YouTube. Tune in every Tuesday for new episodes. Full hearts, big brains, and warm cuddles. So yeah. Say bye.
Bye.